What is something a high school teacher told you that you will never forget? We're all trying to figure it out at any age. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Was in the 90s. My political thought teacher never document your deviance. My music teacher used to tell me that before you could break the rules, you had to understand them. A teacher of mine said he would write me a letter of recommendation, but it had been a week or so, and he hadn't gotten back to me yet. I went in a third time to remind him, and I started off with an apology, to which he corrected me, saying don't ever stop advocating for yourself. It's advice I haven't forgotten since. My chemistry teacher told my mom that I would do so much better if I asked questions. I found that this is true in all stages of life. Ask questions. Coming up to our final year 12th exams, my maths teacher handed out an article on the most common things people said on their deathbed. She said no one wished they had worked longer hours, that they had spent more time at work than with their loved ones. If we didn't get the grades we wanted, that's okay, because there'll be a back doors to where we wanted to go. Failure is okay. It's only a minor setback. What's important is having a good balance between work, studies, family, friends, and our own hobbies interest. My partner had a high school teacher that would walk through the busy hallways at school shouting hot coffee while holding an empty mug. He just wanted people to get out of his way, and it always worked. My high school biology teacher, on the end of every quiz or exam, would put a giveaway point question. The question was always the same: science is A, exciting, B, interesting, C, a challenge, D, all of the above. No matter which you marked, you got the point. However, since this was on every exam, the saying was sandblasted into my long-term memory. This led to me always somehow muttering this whenever I was taking an exam in university, substituting the word science with whatever necessary. Then it led to me muttering it whenever I was dealing with something stressful. Now it has become a fallback whenever I run into a life roadblock and everything is simply designated A, exciting, B, interesting, C, a challenge, D, all of the above. It's simple, but it helps keep me from being too negative. Pay attention to what you pay attention to. My favorite math teacher had a philosophy about us understanding how to get to formulas instead of memorizing them. Basically, if we memorize them, we were gonna remember them wrong, and would never be the wiser, because we thought we remembered it. The true sign of the economy in a slump is when people stop buying big screen TVs. My economics teacher, 2003. Leave your verbal guns at the door. This was the HS football coach's first words teaching sex ed at my high school. He used the metaphor of the old American West, where cowboys would leave their guns at the door when they entered a saloon to drink so nobody would get killed in a drunken outburst. He said we'd talk about a lot of topics that might make us feel uncomfortable and tempted to make a joke at someone else's expense to break the tension. He asked us to leave our verbal guns at the door so everyone could feel comfortable asking honest questions. This was back in the late 80s. He was way ahead of his time. That I wasn't stupid, just lazy, changed my life. Not as inspiring as the others, but I always found it funny how my teacher would say 90 degrees instead of sit up straight. The man who invented the diamond. Alright, I got your attention now. H. Tracy Hall. Write this name down. Dr. Hall invented the first reproducible process for making synthetic diamonds. I mean, this is way back in the 50s. Now today, synthetic diamonds are used in oil drilling, electronics, multi-billion-dollar industries. Now at the time, Dr. Hall worked for General Electric, and he made them a fortune. I mean, incalculable. You want to know how Jer awarded Dr. Hall a 10-years savings bond? 2005. A teacher said intelligence of the future will not be defined by how well you know one skill, but instead how well you can find information and decipher what information is good and bad. My high school baseball coach sociology teacher always used to say those who are prepared create their own luck before exams. This is a true life lesson. Whenever my teacher said anything controversial that he didn't want repeated, he would preface it with "Don't quote me on this, because I'll just deny it." I still use that. Our high school chemistry teacher said, "Remember, a warm test tube or Bunsen burner are no substitutes for a satisfying relationship." That our town was a shithole and the best advice he could give us was to move out and live elsewhere. Decades later, he was correct. I had an English teacher my freshman year of high school who was one of the rare adults that treated all of his students with respect, while at the same time challenging us to do better. I distinctly remember him telling our class, "You are not as mature as you think you are, but you are more mature than your parents give you credit for." He also told us about an agreement rule he had with his own kids. He understood how hard it was for kids to do the right thing in the face of peer pressure. So he had told his kids that if they were ever in a situation underage drinking, drugs, whatever, where they knew they shouldn't be, they could call, and using an previously agreed upon code word that was banal and unsuspicious, he would know he needed to go get them and be the bad guy. He would show up, Uncle Buck style, and get them out of wherever they were. This would allow them to save face with their friends and there would be no consequences for being the situation in the first place. Class camp. We're out walking a trail to the next campsite, carrying our lives in our packs. I was not in great physical shape and was well back in the rear, so it's basically just me and one teacher to make sure no one fell too far back. We came to a part where a branch had fallen across the trail, big enough to be an effort to move it, but not so large that it couldn't have been moved by any of the 30 other students and teachers that had already walked around it. Without even thinking about it, I grabbed the branch and tossed it to the side of the path. The teacher said to me 30 boys walked past that branch. It took one man to move it, and he made life easier for every person after him. It became a personal motto of sorts: make it easier for the people who come after you. Although when you do a good job, the person who comes after you is usually also you. Struggled with dyslexia and a learning disability my whole life. English class was heck for me every year. Senior year, my lit teacher read some short story that was required of me and said, "What the duck are you doing here? You are starting in my app lit class starting tomorrow." I passed the app test and my entire life really began because he believed in me. I'm now a high school teacher, and while not as great as him, really think I'm doing good work. Edit. Went to bed with Takama on this post. Woke up with 5,000. Holy heck. Thanks for the support, guys. Just to clarify, I teach US history. I still struggle with my dyslexia. He wasn't a cure but a motivator. I had a passion for history though. Thanks again, everyone. My freshman year history teacher told us first day of school about how he went to college with Bill Gates. Said he was one of the people that Bill asked to invest in his startup. He had declined. And here I'm teaching history class to high schoolers. In my childhood, only one person ever tackled my mother about her abuse of me and my siblings. It was Parents' Day and my bitch of a mother, as usual, turned up to take the credit for my being top of the class again. At one point there was just me, my bitch of a mother, and Mrs. Soames' physics teacher in the lab. Mrs. Soames quite calmly challenged her, saying, "Mrs. XXXXX, why do you treat Tom Stotty the way you do? She's a good girl and doesn't deserve it." To my astonishment, my evil bitch of a mother was speechless. No one had ever confronted her before, and she just didn't know where to put herself. It was easy for the other teachers and pupils to make snide, patronizing remarks about this cow to me. A 13-year-old girl isn't in a position to do anything about it, and I'm guessing they were trying to ease their consciences about the fact that they were too cowardly to intervene. But Mrs. Soames has been a role model for me ever since, and an unforgettable example of those people brave enough to tackle a bully in the presence of their victim. To have someone stand by you when you are vulnerable and make their support for you clear, I can't tell you how that changed my view of other people. In 1974 I was taught that the planet Mercury had a tidally locked orbit around the Sunday, that one side of the planet faced the sun all the time. It's not true. Mercury's true orbit and rotational periods were worked out in 1965. My favorite history teacher told me follow the money, not in life as such, but in looking at events in history. It wasn't enough to say X country invaded Y country because they wanted more power. Why did they want those lands? What was going on in the economy that made it worth the resources to invade? In truth, it rarely comes down to ideals. My music teacher, when I spent a large length of time skipping school due to various reasons, she had phoned me after spending hours tracking a way to contact me because she was worried. I'm not phoning to tell you off. I'm phoning to make sure you're okay. You don't have to go to the classes you don't like. Your exam is on Wed and I'm phoning to let you know. No matter what, I know that you'd still be practicing because you're a bright student and I know you'll go far, no matter what you choose to do. If you want to hurt a man, I mean really hurt a man, you don't hit him in the crotch. You hit him in the wallet. My 11th grade social studies teacher. Young man, I said no talking. If you have something to say, meet me out in the hallway and we'll discuss it like men. Another freshman history teacher filling in for my regular teacher after our new kid who had only been enrolled for 2 days whispered, "Who is that?" to my neighbor. I faked my way through 4th and 5th grade math. I never understood how to do long division, but managed to hide that from the teachers and answer test questions by reverse multiplication. Basically get a number and multiply it out and see how close I would get and keep doing it until I got the answer. My 6th grade math teacher figured out that I was faking and had no idea how to actually divide anything. She had me come in one afternoon to help with cleaning the erasers. All the kids fought for this privilege, so I was thrilled. Sat me down and tutored me until I grasped the concept. Bless you, Mrs. Gillespie. Consider subscribing if you enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more of Reddit Universe,